Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is the Cjs Court. I'm your host, CJ Atemo, and I'm so glad that you are tuned in. I hope that you have had a lovely week and you've had a lovely day as well. Well, we normally say that we set up the jury, but the verdict remains with you. Today, we're talking about something that is very emotive, sometimes even very difficult to talk about because of the experiences that people go through, the views that people have. But the reason we bring this is so that while we are talking about it, somebody else will be getting help and the various perspectives as well will be brought to the fore. I'm talking about rape, and that's what we will be talking about today. Kindly share the stream if you can. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, CJ Atemo. Bring in your friends. Let's get your comments. Have you ever gone through this ordeal? What was your experience? Let's hear your comments. Let's hear your views and your thoughts as well. To help us go through this, I've got a panel of three. They're just ladies. That's not to mean that it's only ladies who get affected by this, but then the greater percentage probably would be for the ladies. We've got Celine Njoki, who is a survivor. Celine, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You're right.
Yes.
And then I've got Faith Gore. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
All right. And then I've got Wangu. Is it Wangu or Wangu? Kanja.
Wangu Kanja.
Wangu Kanja as well. Ladies, welcome to the Cjs Court.
Thank you.
Rape is not a very easy thing for most people to talk about because of the emotions around it, the anger, the different views, and a lot has been said around it of late. I realize that each and every one of you is a survivor. How come you easily would just step out and say, look, I want to talk about this?
Okay, so for me, when I was going through the different challenges after my rape ordeal, I thought if I'm going through this, having come from a background that is well-to-do, what is happening to people who don't have access to spaces or even who live in the informal settlements? How do they navigate getting help, getting information, getting to know where can I access services? And that's actually what drove me to establishing Wangu Kanja Foundation to work with survivors of sexual violence to help them access justice, but also restore their dignity. Because most of the time, the survivors or the person is actually victimized, having gone through rape.
And I'll come to that aspect of the blaming of the victims sometimes, and that's why I say sometimes it's very difficult to have conversations around rape because they're very, very emotive. But Faith, for you, what made you get out to start talking about this?
What made me talk about it is because growing up, I never had anyone talk about their story of being raped. So I grew up knowing, rather feeling, that I was weird because I never had anyone talk about sexual abuse or defilement or rape for that matter. So when I once heard someone share their story on a podcast, I was like, yo, if they're there, then I want to be there. And so I thought about the little girl, I thought about the youth who's struggling in silence because of their story. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to own my story to allow another person to also own up, because we can't heal what we don't reveal.
Right, right. Celine, there are people who normally think that, you know, when somebody comes out to talk about rape, that sometimes they're just trying to draw sympathy and attention to themselves. Is that really the case?
Well, I got that a lot. Actually from friends and people I didn't think they would talk about, they would tell me those things. And for me, it wasn't seeking sympathy. I really needed to heal because I was molested as a child, and as an adult, I went through 3 gang rapes.
And the only thing that I needed to do was heal. And I knew if I could speak about this thing, it was the only way for me to heal. Because when you're silenced, you are a victim.
Okay.
But when you speak it out, you're healing, and you also helping others who are silenced by the people who think they're seeking sympathy out there.
You know, when Faith is talking about after her ordeal, she felt weird because, first of all, she didn't know that anybody else was going through this anywhere else. Did you at one point, blame yourself, feel like, is there something wrong with me? Am I the reason this happened? I made the person do this. Did you at one point feel like you need to blame yourself?
Okay, I didn't blame myself. Actually, the question was when it happened, immediately when it happened, my question was to God. Why have you allowed this to happen to me? And I don't think I'm a bad person. And looking at that and hearing what Faith and Selena are referring to their ordeals is if people should get to understand that when you're raped, you do not give consent to have any sexual intercourse or sexual relationship with someone. So the bottom line is, if you do not give consent to anyone for a sexual relationship or sexual intercourse, that's rape.
All right.
Any person who's below 18 cannot give consent, so that's defilement automatically. If you are an adult having sexual intercourse with a child, then that child cannot consent because that's provision given under the Sexual Offences Act. And most of the time, the community actually tends to shift blame to the victim, and hence the reason why people keep on thinking I'm the one to blame. Yeah. I'm the reason why it happened to me, because also community asks questions like, how were you dressed? Where were you at? Were you drunk? What were you doing out in the night? Despite all those circumstances, nobody, man, woman, or child, should be violated by anyone sexually, because it takes away your dignity.
All right. Yeah. All right. And I was going to ask this, Faith, just as Wangu has preempted it. I was going to ask that because it nearly comes whenever there's any case of somebody who has been raped. Then there will be the people who will come in and say, look, we need to caution the other ladies. And somebody will put a disclaimer. I do not endorse rape. However, we need to let the young girls know, don't go into these spaces, don't do this and don't do that. Is it a matter of insensitivity, or are they actually genuinely raising concerns?
That sounds as though they're projecting their denial, because rape is a crime. You know, that's like me giving you an expensive phone and then I tell you, yeah, this is an expensive phone, but don't use it because somebody will come and steal it. Am I not supposed to be using my phone? Shouldn't I feel safe? So why do we caution people about rape? Okay, so how will I caution a 2-month-old not to be raped, rather to be defiled? How will I caution a boy who's being taught how to use the toilet? How will I caution him about being defiled and assaulted? Because you see, many times defilement and sexual violence mostly happens in the hands of people we trust. A good percentage, yeah, it happens in the hands of people we trust. So that means that I shouldn't trust people.
You know why I say that? I've seen this several times, Celine, that people will say, do not go into a secluded place. If you know you're not interested in this man, for example, do not accept invitations to either his place for a night or to a hotel or something. They keep on bringing that. Then there will be those who will argue and say you're blaming the victim. Where is the balance in that conversation?
I don't think there'll ever be a balance in such a conversation because we are strangers. I've just met you. My husband was a stranger. I didn't know him. We built a relationship from that point of, I met you this day, we met, we had lunch. He could have raped me. He could have done something worse. The thing that we need to realize is that a rapist is a rapist. A rapist is a bad person. And sometimes I even think, is it that they also need help? Is it that something was done to them? Because I don't understand how a man would just look at you and think, let me do these things to this person. Let me give you an example with me. The people who raped me, they put sticks in me. They put things in me. How, in your conscience, would you sit and think, I won't do this to a woman. I want to do this to a woman. Yet you can come, you can talk to me, and I can say no, I can say yes. And we can move on. There are other women who will accept you. So I don't think we will ever find a balance in this kind of conversations, because also people out there keep blaming the victims. Like, you went to this place, like people kept telling me, why were you walking at night? It was not the first time I was walking at night. Actually, it was around 9:30. The second time they found me the third time they found me in my house, like I was in my house. I was safe. I thought I was safe, but they came and found me.
Did you, and I'll come back to this question, because when you have gone through the same ordeal, like nearly 3 times, do you ask yourself, why am I attracting this? If it happens once, you will still have these questions, but you can probably go past it. If it is happening the 3rd time, did you get to the place where you started asking yourself, is this a bad omen? Is there something that is pursuing me? Is there something around me that attracts this?
I actually thought I was cursed. I kept telling myself that I am cursed, because since I was a baby at 7 years old, then here I am as an adult 3 times. And it's not just one man, several men. And I kept saying that I am cursed. I kept listening to the voices out there saying that I was cursed. And I knew if I don't rise above this, I would either die. And I knew I was going to die. Actually, I was holding so much bitterness in me that I knew that if I don't heal, I'm going to die. And the only thing that maybe kept me going or kept me alive was out of my children. That was the only thing that was keeping me alive. Yeah.
How then do you, going past and trying to just heal, how then do you deal with the violator? How do you deal with this person? Because we've said most of the times, they're people that you know. Sometimes they're people in the community that you live in. And the African setting or culture, sometimes we don't want, it's nearly like what they say about Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas should stay in Vegas. So people don't want to talk about that, because probably, it's going to interfere with a relationship with a family. It's going to bring a lot of issues around a community. They don't want to be seen as the people who took so-and-so's son to prison and all of that. How do you then begin to deal with this person that has done that to you?
Okay, before I answer your question, one of the things that majority of people in the community do is actually amplify male privileges, because most of the time boys and men are socialized in a certain way. So when you're growing up, you actually, you see the woman as a weaker sex, but also woman as property. So you have rights over her or them. So and also there's the issue of when you are rejected, majority of men don't know how to handle reject. Yeah. So when a man is rejected, the next best thing he can do is use aggression. And that comes from socialization. And then the community itself actually use that to rationalize, justify, and condone violence. Because when a woman is violated, for example, when she's going through domestic violence, the first thing they will ask is, what did you do? Yeah. Instead of, why did you actually violate her? Because we are always asking the victim to justify. instead of holding the person who has committed the crime accountable. So it's a matter of everyone understanding that sexual violence, any form of sexual violence, is a crime. It's not a gender issue where we are discussing men, women. No, its bottom line is it's a crime. That's the narrative that we should work with, and we should not justify, rationalize, or condone it in any way, having in mind that men, women, children, both boys and girls, are actually going through different forms of sexual violence. And also looking at survivors trying to come into terms with what happened to them. First, it's a journey where you need to actually acknowledge that it happened, and healing will not just take one day. It's a long process, because for me it took 12 years. And when you get to a point where you integrate or deal with your day-to-day life, because it will never be erased from your life, you have to integrate it into your life, because when you're walking at night, you're always thinking, what will happen to me? If you walk into a total, like a stranger's house, you're thinking, what am I going to find here? So you're always trying to balance out your security and also ensure that you are safe wherever you're going. And trying to even come into terms, especially if it's someone close to you. That's totally different. Your father raped you. How do you even integrate that into your... How do you have a relationship thereafter with that person who has violated you? And that's why we work towards prevention, because at the end of the day, the people who are supposed to safeguard you need to make sure that that happens, not violate you in the process. And it's very hard to forgive someone who has committed such a crime to you. But for your healing process, you have to do it, but that does not mean you do not access justice. Okay. You can start by just confessing or professing that you have forgiven this person, but then also hold accountable that person, because then you're releasing that person. Because if you keep on holding on to that person, then it's like you're taking poison and you're the one who's going to die, and the other person will continue with their life. So it's about how do we as community support survivors to get out of their situation where it's complicated. When it comes to sexual violence, if you look at gender-based violence, most of the crimes happen on you. Yeah. But sexual violence, there is penetration. Yeah. So because of that penetration, the pain, the person taking away your dignity is inside you. So dealing with that, it's a process, it's an expensive process, but also you need community support.
All right. And you know, Wangu has talked about the element of seeking justice. How easy or how difficult is that? Especially, again, when we are dealing with people that we know. How easy is it? Because what she's raising is that, to a great degree, the community becomes an enabler of the violator by holding things either in secrecy, saying, you know, let's just let it be, so that we do not raise issues among families. And especially when it's a family member, it becomes even difficult. How do you take your father, your uncle, your brother to jail, your cousin? How do you do that? Where is that place of this seeking justice, and how easy or how difficult is it, especially having the community in mind?
Well, for me, in my everyday work, I come across people who have gone through sexual violence, and most of them, it comes from family members, maybe their fathers, their uncles. And also for me, my first perpetrator was an uncle, my dad's cousin. And you find most of them, they don't want to go to court because they want to address the issue at home. Maybe the mom says, no, this is my brother, you can't take them to jail. And I keep thinking, what about the child? What about the victim? What about this person who has been hurt, will they ever heal? Like, you know, you're waking up every day and you've seen that person. And it's so hard to convince such people. And I hope and I pray that one day people will wake up to just look at these people as sexual offenders, and not just like my brother, not just like my father, and not just like my uncle. Look at them that way. But as for me, I needed to forgive. And what I did is I looked for my uncles, those ones, those who did those things when I was very young. And I had carried them for so long. I had carried bitterness. And every day I kept saying that I have forgiven them. But I looked for them and I sat down with them and I told them, look here, you did this to me. You did this to me. You stole my innocence. You stole my childhood. You were supposed to protect me because these were my dad's cousins. And since I cannot take you to prison, I cannot do anything, I have forgiven you. I have let go. And from today, I will not hold that against you. The only other person you need to go to and seek for forgiveness is God. But as for me, I have let go.
Faith, tell me about that. When, for example, Celine gets to the place where she says, okay, I've forgiven you and I've let it go. I'm not going to take you to prison. Tell me about that. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the wrong thing to do? Because somebody else will sit outside and argue that when you do that, you have left these people out there and somebody else is in danger. So they will be feeling like, okay, well, you have done your part, but you also hold a greater responsibility to the larger community. So you've left the next girl either in danger of these people. Is it the right thing to do? I know that's a difficult question, right?
There's the right thing to do and the safe thing to do. Safe in this sense. By me first acknowledging that I was defiled, it comes with there's some shame that comes with it, and it's kind of heavy to accept that. Number two, reporting it to someone else whom I'm not sure is going to believe me, because the truth is, when you report this to the say police station, many times they won't believe you, because again the evidence that they need is, you know, the clothing and all that, and sometimes I'm not able to present that, so that means nobody will believe me. So if I go report my uncle and take them to court, that process is so tedious because I'm not even sure if I'm going to be believed. But that shouldn't keep anyone from reporting, because again there's legal aid, you know. Even as you report, you'll get support to go through the process, and you may not totally get justice, but at least you did something.
All right. So in a sense, then, what you're saying is that the element of finding closure is more key. You may not find justice, but you actually have to find closure.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, but you don't do that alone.
Yeah, because I was going to go into that. Like, so what are the support
that
systems that you need to look for? You're talking about legal aid.
Yeah.
But what are these support systems, Wangu, that we need to look for? Because when you have gone through this ordeal, you're bruised emotionally, mentally, probably physically. So justice and the legal aspect is just one side to it. So what are the support systems that somebody needs?
Okay, so one, the initial support actually comes from family members, where they work with you. First, because you have to go to a medical facility for you to get medical treatment. And the reason why we actually advocate for people to go to hospital is for them to get post-exposure prophylaxis, to avoid to ensure that they don't contract HIV and AIDS, sexually transmitted infection, get pregnant and stuff. And then from there, you go to the police station, report, and then police will do the investigations and then forward the case to court for it to start. One of the things is I rather you say you try and tested the law and the mechanisms that are there to hold someone accountable, especially when they've committed sexual crimes, than not doing it at all. Because then what you're doing is you're giving this person to continue, permission to continue violating other people. And that's what we insist on. Whether you're going to get access to justice or not, make sure that it goes on record, so-and-so raped me or so-and-so defiled me. And the reason why I'm saying that is our criminal justice system has improved. We support survivors of sexual violence to access justice. The wheels are turning slowly, but we've seen over time improvement. And because of the improvement, then we have people who've been convicted on different categories of crime. But the most important and critical thing is for the family to actually support, trust, support, and also work with the person, because it's a long journey that just starts with the first step, which is going to hospital, because then the medical report will help you go and report at the police station. And nowadays we have a police, the National Police Service is actually accommodative of survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. We are not there yet, like 100%, but at least compared to when I went through my rape ordeal and now, we have quite a number of things that have changed, and also enforcement of the Sexual Offences Act. So family support and community support, and trusting that this person is actually telling the truth. You don't need to question whether it's true or not, but you need to support the person. Believe the person, what they are telling you, and work with them.
Are the people around us built up to work with us? Because in certain cases, it nearly becomes like the support people give you is to shut up. So this case never comes up, nobody talks about it, and they feel like, you know what, we are protecting Celine. We don't want to bring up anything that will trigger that. Either the memory, don't talk about something, especially, for example, when a survivor has conceived, then has a baby. There are those cases where people would even try to take away the baby, hide the baby, and so the baby is, made to feel that this is not your mother, so they don't talk to. I know a case like that. Somebody I was with in campus those days, and they took away the baby. So the baby was belonged to the grandmother. So the girl who was raped, nobody would talk about the baby, and nobody would talk about those issues around her. Are the people around us really built up for those conversations, Celine?
We have not yet gotten there. Like for me, my family kept castigating me. Like, you don't have to talk about this. You don't have to tell people you've been through this. Actually, nobody came to see me in hospital. I was admitted 3 times. And my last gang rape was 2018. And I was in hospital for almost 3 months. Nobody, as in members of my family, none came to see me in hospital. And they actually asked me to move away from that place where they lived. And I moved away from them. And even now, I have never sat with any one of them and explained, or even they trying to ask me what happened. Nobody actually knew that I went through 7 operations. Yeah, they didn't ask. They've never asked till today, 3 years later. So I don't think this it's a taboo. It's like a taboo subject. People take it as a taboo when you have, and they take it as your fault. You went there. Actually, can I shock you that some members of my family kept saying, maybe it's a deal I did and thugs were sent to me to harass me. Others said maybe I was moving out with a married man, such things. I had such things a lot. So I don't think the community is, or even family members are built for these kind of conversations. And it's time we sensitize the community out there that these things is not the victim's fault. Because what fault is a child, as in a 7-year-old? I've met even 5-year-old children. What did they do? Why were they raped? So I think the community need to be sensitized about this thing. And the more we speak about it, the more we talk about it, the more the community gets to know about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you are sending in your thoughts and your views. I hope that, and if you have been a victim, you know, you need to speak out about that. The social media handles of these ladies will be right over there, so you can reach out. Some of you I know have been in the place of silence. You don't know who to talk to because probably your family members or your friends as well don't think that you are speaking the truth and you actually feel like you need to talk about this. On the flip side, I want to talk to those again who, you know, you could be the person who is the violator and you actually feel like you need to get out of this. You have raped somebody, you have violated somebody, and you feel like you need help. Sometimes you feel like you don't know. Some people say, you know, I don't know what came on me. And you should also just, you know, seek help because I believe that there would be help out over there for you. So don't just sit in there and be thinking that we are only talking about the survivors of it. But if you are a perpetrator of that, you also need to seek help. Just find out what is happening to you. If you try to come out of it and you're not coming out of it, please seek help, seek a counselor, therapy, or something. Well, we don't have too much time left, ladies, and we've just been, you know, going through this element. But I want to find out, is there hope to move past it, you know, into a relationship? For example, for you, Celine, you having gone through like 3 gang rapes, is it possible for somebody to come out of that and have a relationship that is healthy, that is solid with a man?
I can say yes, because after the gang rape, I got married again last year, and it's possible. It's possible to come out of the ashes and rise again, and have a relationship, a healthy relationship with a man. But the man has to be a healed man. To look at you and not see the scars you've been through, to look at you and not see that you have been raped. He has to be a man who, I can say, God has helped. A healed man who will look at you as his wife. A man who will look at you, who will know that sometimes you will wake up with the scars bleeding. Sometimes you're not healed. You can wake up in the morning and start throwing tantrums because the scars inside you are bleeding that day. And he will just sit there with you and say, let us walk through this together.
Wow. I would love to meet your husband. That's a strong man right there. I would love to meet your husband over that. Faith, even as we wind up, are there ways that we can, you know, parents can help their children to protect themselves? As much as we say, okay, well, we won't blame the victim, but there are people out there who will just come, you know, like the vultures. Anyway, are there ways that a parent, for example, should teach their child to protect themselves from rape?
Yeah, and that's where prevention that Wangu was talking about comes in. Number one, we need to help children know their body parts with their actual names. Danger comes in when we call this nose, mouth, hands. Then when it comes to your genitalia, it's either dudu or, you know, some weird name. When you give it a weird name, then it's not respected for what it is. So have an appropriate conversation with your child. Let them know the actual names of their genitalia. Let them know what safe touch is and what is not safe touch. Be available emotionally and also come to the level of your child. In this sense, be approachable. Because many times not as though I'm blaming my parents, but I felt that they were harsh. That's why I never reported. Like, I was abused when I was 5, 10, and 12. Different people, different areas, but never did I ever talk about it because I was never told such a thing at home, and I felt like I did something wrong, so I couldn't even report. So let's talk to them about sexual abuse, that it can even happen from an uncle or an aunt, or even a parent, even nowadays parents defile their children. So be open to your child, and then when a child reports to you anything, please listen to them and believe them. You don't have to do anything, just believe first. Then from there, you can seek for counseling, or you can seek for support, but do not confront the violator, because many times we are so angry and we go confront the violator, not thinking about the safety of the victim.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wangu, even as we get your final thoughts as well, I just thought about this, that in the work that you do with the various people, especially, for example, in the informal settlements, is there any work towards sensitizing men against raping these people, because these are their sisters, their mothers, their daughters? Is there any deliberate work that is being done with the men just to sensitize them against that?
Yeah, so we have community dialogues, but also engaging men to understand consequences of sexual and gender-based violence. Because if I'm affected and I'm in a relationship, so the man that I'm in the relationship with will be affected. If I'm part of a family and there are men in that family, so even those men are going to be affected. Because either I'm their sibling, their loved one, so in one way or the other, they're going to be affected. But the one thing that we are trying to help people understand is, if you don't break the cycle of violence, you will continue going through, and hence the reason why if a person is violated at 5, 12, there's likelihood of them in adulthood to go through a similar abuse. So we need to have conversations around sex, sexuality, and sexual violence at a very young age with different age groups, but at the same time, helping people to understand when it happens, can you address it then? Because if you break the cycle then there's no likelihood of it happening again. And also, having in mind that not only men rape, but also there are women who rape. And I know a conversation that most people are like, what do you mean? A man can be raped by a woman. How? Unless they're actually into it. Because this is the one thing people don't understand. Our bodies are created uniquely in such a way, when you're touched in certain areas, arousal is automatic. The body just reacts. It's not you, it's the body. So if someone, as a man, if you're touched in a certain way and then you get aroused and then a woman rapes you, if you did not consent, right? If you did not consent, that's rape. And also the same for a woman. If you did not consent, even if we went to the bedroom and we are all naked and I got to a point where I said no, it's a no. You need to just back off and understand the person is not comfortable to engage, and then I take that as a confirmation that maybe you need to build the relationship, or you need to continue the conversation for the person to get to a point where they feel comfortable and they will agree now to have a sexual relationship with you. So conversations around sex, sexuality, and sexual violence is a must. For us to be able to break the cycle of violence, we need to hold the different perpetrators. If it's a perpetrator of domestic violence, sexual violence, or other forms of gender-based violence, it's a must we hold them accountable. I can attest try the criminal justice system now as we are talking and give me feedback. If you get police officers who are not willing to support you, let us know and we will address that, because we work with the National National Police Service through the Police Reform Working Group to support them understand. If I come to you, you are a police officer and you're putting all this body language or face that tells me keep off, then I will not come and report a case to you. So what we are trying to help them is try and set up a structure that is welcoming and then very professional in a way that I will feel comfortable, even if I'm a man who's been raped, coming to report to you, and also having secluded offices where you take my statement so that I feel comfortable and that my safety and security is actually considered.
All right, I feel we will need to do a part 2 at some point with this so that we can just talk about the other things, just help people going forward. Thank you so much, Celine Njoki and Faith God, Wangu, Kanja. Please give your social media handles if you don't mind, or how people can reach you. Maybe somebody's watching and they would want to connect with you as a safe space. How do they do that? Let me start with you, Celine.
My Facebook name is Celine Loved EM, Celine, and then Loved and EM. And I don't have a Twitter account, but I'm on Instagram on under the name Rare Gem, like Rare Gem.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Faith.
So you can reach me on Facebook. My personal profile is Faith Gore. That is Faith Gor, like Gor Mahia, but without the Mahia. And then my page is Teacher Faith. And then my YouTube channel is Teacher Faith. Yeah.
All right. Wangu.
Okay, my handles are just Wangu Kanja. Or you can Google Wangu Kanja Foundation and you will find our contacts, and feel free to reach out because for us, it is important for us to work towards restoring dignity to survivors of sexual violence and their families.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming and for speaking out. Well, we cannot go into the whole of this matter, but I hope that the conversation today has been helpful to you, at least for some of you to begin the conversation, for some of you to just place yourself in the various stages that you are in, to get perspective. And for family members, for support systems, I hope that you have received some help as well through this, just to know how to handle the people around you who have been violated. And for the violators, for the aggressors, I hope you also then get to receive help and get to understand the implications of what you do to other people. Each one of us can seek help so that each one of us becomes part of the support system to everyone that is going through the violation of rape. As has been said, nobody draws that to themselves. We don't blame the victim, but teach your children, as Faith said, teach your children, because out there, they're just all these kind of people who are out there. So teach your children as well, the prevention. Seek help, go to the police, go to the doctors, anywhere that you need to go. And please talk to the ladies that we have had on the show here as well. Till the next time, this has been the Cjs Court, and I'm your host, Cj Atemo. Kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel, Cj Atemo, and we'll see you then.